As electric cars become more and more popular, we're starting to finally see great electric vehicles filling out each necessary category. Most recently, electric trucks have been all the talk, but now we're starting to see true three-row electric SUVs come to market. One of the first true three-row SUVs to come to market is this one, the Rivian R1S. This is Rivian's second vehicle offering and shares a lot with Rivian's truck. However, this vehicle stands out all on its own. Today, I'm going to break down everything this vehicle offers, the good, the bad, and any issues I saw, so let's get into it. The Rivian R1S offers a lot of things. This is the launch edition of this vehicle, so it packs all of the best features Rivian offers on this car. It has the Adventure Package interior, which actually is now the only option Rivian sells. For the motors, it's quad motor all-wheel drive, which means there is one motor for each wheel, and that offers over 800 horsepower, 900 feet-pounds of torque, and a 0 to 60 in as little as 3 seconds. This has the large pack battery, getting a 321-mile EPA estimated range on a full charge, with the stock wheels, and the color here is launch green, but wrapped in matte. The wheels are the 20-inch all-terrain wheels, and Rivian says these reduce the range to 289 miles on a full 100% charge. This has the black mountain interior with dark ash wood accents, and today would be worth around $94,500 new from Rivian. As far as the look of this SUV, I love it. It has the right amount of boxy SUV feel with great design cues all around. From the front, it's super distinct with a light bar and two oval-like headlights. There are also two tow hooks, the front grille, ultrasonic sensors, and a front camera. As you can see here on the driver's side of the truck is the charge port door. This opens in a cool way, but long term I think that the cool way that this opens will be overshadowed by the alignment that it doesn't seem to maintain. I've seen a number of R1Ss and R1Ts, and all of them have a bit of a charge port door alignment issue. I don't really mind this kind of stuff, but some people really do. As for the general look of the front, some people still think it looks like a cartoon character, and I can definitely see that, but I love it anyway. Up front, since it's fully electric, there is a front trunk. This is a massive storage space and is very usable since it's an automatic hood that opens or closes at the press of a button, and it has tons of usable space. There's even a built-in shelf that folds up and magnetizes inside the front trunk. It's designed very well. Around the sides you have 4 normal doors with handles that pop out automatically on approach when using the phone key or key fob. These are both included, but I was actually only given a key card for this test, and I have to say it was actually not the ideal setup. It takes a few tries to get it to work most of the time, so I highly recommend planning to use a fob or the phone key with this car. That said though, the car is pretty delayed with these features and does not work as well as Tesla's do when it comes to the phone as key. I hope they can improve that through software. Around the back, the light bar and Rivian logo pair well to round out this vehicle. I think it might look the best from these angles, but then we get into the specific features of the R1S compared to the R1T. The R1S trunk has a hatch and tailgate combo. First, you open the hatch with a button, and it opens automatically. Then, if you want to drop the tailgate, you press the button and do so manually. To put it back up, you have to put the tailgate up manually, and then when that's secure, you can press the button to close the hatch. It does feel a bit odd to have half of this be automatic while half is manual. In any case, that opens up to a lot of great storage space, which we'll get around to in just a minute. All around the R1S are yellow Rivian accents. You can see it in the multiple Rivian logos around the exterior and interior of the car, the brake calipers, handles inside, and more. I think it pairs well with pretty much every color Rivian offers here, and I particularly like the logos located on the C-pillar, which are exclusive to the R1S. Now let's check out the rear storage. The Rivian has 3 rows of seating, and that's a big draw for this vehicle. I'm going to go in depth on that in storage, and then we'll get back to what this vehicle offers you as a driver and on screen. When all 3 rows of seating are up, you still have a decent amount of trunk space. You also have a number of handy features. There's a flat panel in the back, but this can be removed to reveal Rivian's built-in cargo holder. This is designed for their field kit and other accessories that you may have. Then this lifts out for an even deeper understorage compartment beneath that. For many, this will simply be a great place to hide or store additional cargo. It could definitely fit a lot, however, for others, a spare tire would go right here. Many electric cars are not designed with a spare in mind, so this is great to see from Rivian as an option. If you don't want a spare, you still have fantastic space to utilize. Then in the trunk, there are 3 useful features. First, there are 2 different outlets, one normal with max 1500 watts and one 12-volt style with max 180 watts, which you can turn on or off from the main screen. These are next next to the buttons that fold the second row seats. Then beneath that is Rivian's air compressor. The hose it comes with can reach all 4 tires as needed. Also back there are 2 cargo hooks, each located on a rail. You can slide these into any position you need, and they can come in handy to hold down certain cargo. Once you fold down the third row of seats, the back opens up a bit more. These seats can fold with the buttons on the top corner of the seats, and they do require you to touch the seats themselves. It feels a bit odd that there are buttons to automatically fold the second row seats and not the third row, but in practice it's actually pretty seamless. You're at the back of the car, you reach a bit to fold the third row down, and then fold the second row with buttons. They fold flat, but they do sit a couple inches higher than the trunk bed, so you can reposition that flat panel to make the bed flush with the seats, just at a slight angle. Once these seats are all down, you really see just how big this car is. The amount of cargo space in this scenario is massive and probably the biggest available in the EV space today. To get these seats back up though is a bit of a different story from putting them down. The second row seats take some muscle to slide back into place and put back into a seated position. And then of course the third row can only be put back up with the buttons on the top corners of those seats. So you can either do so by pushing a second row seat forward, reaching over and pushing the third row seat up, or you can do it extremely awkwardly from the trunk. This is the worst possible option, and I've seen a few reviews criticize this. I've even seen a review criticizing how hard it is to put the second row seats into position when you're sitting in the third row. To me, these aren't actual use cases though. First, if you're folding the rear seats, you will most likely leave them that way for cargo space until an actual passenger needs to sit back there. Now that someone needs to sit there, you have to push a seat forward in the second row to put that seat back up, but this is something that you will already be doing in order for a passenger to even get back to that third row. The only real time you'd have to awkwardly put the third row back up from the trunk is if you don't want to slide the second row seats forward and you're folding the seat up for a use that isn't someone actually getting back there. As for the use case of someone sitting in the third row and trying to put the second row back into place, I don't see why this would ever be necessary. Someone sitting anywhere else can put that seat back into place fairly easily for you. That said, this setup does feel a little odd. It's an interesting combination of functionality, confusion, different controls, and heavy seats that you have to move. In this price range, some more automatic options here are usually expected. As for the space though, Rivian did a really great job. The front seats are very comfortable, providing plenty of space, heating, ventilation, lumbar support, and anything you may need. They can also lay down nearly flat. The second row seats are comfortable too, offering a few different levels of recline, and then I was actually really impressed with the third row. To get in, I press the button on top of the second row seat, and it will fold forward and slide to let me get back there. One thing I did notice is how aggressive this is. It really smacks when it goes forward, and could be something that would wear out long term. In any case, I worm my way into the back, ideally and most likely have someone put the second row back into place for me, and I'm good to go. I'm 5'10", and with the second row all the way back, my knees are right up against the seat. This wasn't too bad, but here's my ideal setup as an adult in the third row. So right now I'm in the third row, and the way this best works for my knees is to have this forward. So this is where the seat is all the way back, and this is like one adjustment forward, and that gives me actually some knee room. I actually can kind of put my legs and my feet down here. It's pretty comfortable. I'd actually be pretty fine with this on a road trip even. But the other adjustment where my knees are right up against it, I'd only last like 45 minutes to an hour. So if the middle passenger can accommodate me for this, I think this is actually pretty reasonable for an adult. So I'm in the passenger seat right now, and this is adjusted to me. And let's see how this chain reaction goes all the way down the line. So a 5'10" person is comfortable in the front row, and then this middle seat is adjusted so that a 5'10" person can sit in the last row. So how is it in the middle row? Little tight, but reasonable because I can kind of spread my legs to the side of the seat. So I think it's definitely possible. You could have 6 adults in here comfortably, maybe with the smaller child in the middle in these seats, and you could have 7. I think it's actually pretty reasonable. It's actually funny being back here. It's reminding me growing up, I had 2 brothers and I was the youngest. And so I was oftentimes in the third row of our minivan, and they're brothers. So of course they would just leave you in the back, or they wouldn't help you fold down your seat. So it's kind of nice that it has this button right here. I can just press this when they decide to leave me and not help me fold down the seat. I can just do this, and then I can get myself out. Overall, it's pretty easy. Then in the back, there is plenty of headroom since this row has its own dedicated section of glass roof. I think this really makes a big difference there. Then there's an armrest with storage, cup holder, USB-C port, and air vent on each side. Overall, for a third row, it's tough to complain about anything the R1S offers, but here's one. I'm definitely a big fan of this vent being right here, because that's often something that can happen, but there's no control for it. So I have to go, Mom, please? Can you turn my vent on? And then she can control it from the front. Hopefully she responds. In the second row of the Rivian, there are 3 seats. The middle is pretty small, so I wouldn't count on fitting 3 adults there, but it is possible. That middle seat can fold down into an armrest with cup holders, and then there's a dedicated screen for rear climate controls. This screen is cool, but feels a bit unnecessary software-wise at this point, since it only relates to climate controls controlling the vents right above it. That said, you can turn your vents on or off and adjust heated seats. Below the screen are 2 USB ports, and then you have a few features on the back of the front seats, pockets with cool yellow carabiners, hooks, and USB-C ports on the back of each seat. There are also handles above the seats of this car, and this is something that you definitely want in a car that rides this high. Now let's get into the front. The Rivian R1S has a beautiful design. There's an all-glass roof above you, handles, a couple lights, an SOS button, hazard lights, an interior camera, and normal visors. Then the dash takes a lot of inspiration from Tesla. You have the steering wheel with stalks, 2 screens, and that's most of what you'll use. There are window buttons and normal door handles, but then the steering wheel has a scroll wheel and 2 buttons on each side. The left side controls media and the right side controls Driver Plus, their driver assist system. The left stalk controls wipers, lights, and blinkers, while the right stalk controls gear selection and will initiate Driver Plus. On the main instrument cluster display is all of your relevant driving info, then pretty much everything else is handled on the main screen. So most of what you need to see when you're driving is actually handled on this screen, the instrument cluster display. That's going to show your speedometer, what gear you're in, what your range is left. It'll show your next map step, all that kind of stuff. Whatever you need is right there, good to go. Then as you're driving, this screen will be whatever you want it to be. It will just be whatever app is here. There's not like a standard home screen or something. I'm guessing it would kind of be Maps. That's what it's going to default to. Overall, Maps is a really good interface, and it works really well, and it's super fast. The screen is super responsive and everything, but the Maps itself is built on Mapbox, and you can't use CarPlay or anything in this, so this definitely leaves some to be desired. The routing here often ends up pretty weird. Much like a Tesla, your climate controls are handled on screen, but one difference here is you can actually grab each individual vent like this and move it to exactly what you want. Overall, as I say with Teslas and the R1T as well, it's not a big deal to me because I usually just put it on auto, and then right here I can just adjust my auto temperature. One difference here between the R1T and the R1S is you can control front, middle, and back because you have a third row. It actually has a really cool visualization of the air coming into the middle seats and then the back seats, and you can turn on those vents and control the vent speed for your kids or whoever's sitting in the back. That is the only place you can control the vent speed there though, so if you want to be mean, you can just put them on 4 and never change that for your rear passengers. This also controls your heated steering wheel, heated seats, and ventilated seats, which the front seats have all of that. And you also can turn on pet comfort mode. That will keep the car at the temperature for when you have a pet inside. And that's actually the only keep mode, so I find myself actually putting this on when anyone is in the car, not just pets. Then we have music right here. So built in is radio, Spotify, TuneIn, Tidal, and your phone. Overall, these work pretty well. Spotify is built in and actually integrates with your library right here. So you can scroll around your library and everything, and you can also search. You can go to recents, look at your library, and then this right here can swipe out or back in. A lot of different options for the sound system in this car, which is Meridian. That has now been changed to Rivian's own system. But then this menu is all of your drive modes right here. So you can choose all-purpose, sport, conserve, snow, off-road, or tow. They have a lot of different options, and it allows you to adjust the ride height from lowest to highest. So all-purpose is what most people use all the time. You can have your ride height set to auto, high, standard, or low. But when you go in different modes is when you can get even lower. So lowest is available in sport, and that's 9.5 inches. You can go all the way up to off-road, and you can go to highest, which is 15 inches. And you can really see the difference there. It's really impressive how much you can raise and lower this car. I personally just use all-purpose most of the time on standard or low, but it is nice to have those options for when you need it. Then right here is all your vehicle controls and such. You can open the hood, open the charge port, adjust your mirrors, steering wheel and such, and that's saved to a driver profile. You can also adjust all of the lights, including the accent lights right here and the tailgate lights. And this is your vehicle information as well as your trips. The cameras are really useful in here because you can pull these up anytime and when you're driving, so you can go forward or back, and you have this 360 overhead view, or you can press this, see 2 side cameras and the rear camera, or 2 side cameras and the front camera. The rest of the apps here are energy, which is how you will dial in your charging and also turn on or off the accessory outlets around the car. You can open the charge port doors, see session summaries, and you can also determine what your range is based off of. Like, let's say you normally use conserve. You can see that in all purpose, it would be 208 miles, but in conserve, it's actually 231 miles of range. A full charge in this car is 303 miles. And that's, of course, on conserve. The gear guard menu is what would show you your Sentry mode type of security footage, where it's recording anytime there's motion around the car from all the cameras. And this car doesn't have any events, but here's an example of one. Then there's camping, which gives you a bunch of different options, including leveling the SUV. So it will level it no matter where you're at, as long as the suspension can handle it. And then this is how you connect your phone, and then the rest of your settings for the car. Just a couple other things worth noting. There's the built-in garage door opener right here. You can also access your driver profiles here. There's Alexa integration, notifications, and then right here, this is actually a Wi-Fi hotspot. So you can turn this on and use the car's LTE connection, and it will make a Wi-Fi hotspot that you can use. Bluetooth settings are right here, and then this is Wi-Fi, where you would connect to your home Wi-Fi or anywhere else to get a software update. One little thing that's worth noting is this is your volume adjustment here, which of course you can also adjust on the steering wheel, but you can press this, and this actually allows you to dial in your volume for a bunch of different things. So navigation, as you can see right here, it's all the way down, whereas music's at 10, and I can adjust and dial this in so that phone calls are a little less usually. Pretty nice. To finish up the interior, there's a Bluetooth speaker that is docked and charges within the center console right near the large amount of open space this has. Cup holders slide out from the center console, and then there's the main console storage and a wireless phone charger. This charger looks and sounds cool in practice, but becomes pretty useless once you drive and your phone just slides around and stops charging. I'm very shocked Rivian actually still ships this on this car. Most owners I've seen have replaced it with a MagSafe option or simply keep a cable right there plugged into the 2 USB-C ports located inside the center console. There's no glove box in the R1S, so you have that console storage or these small compartments under each of the front seats. This R1S still has the Meridian elevation sound system, which is great, but Rivian has since changed this to their own system, so I can't report on what that system will be like going forward. I imagine it won't be too much of a difference though. The Meridian system is very good, but is lacking compared to something like a Tesla Model Y. One big question that people often ask with new cars from new companies is, are there any issues? Rivian is brand new to delivering vehicles at scale, so they're bound to have some issues compared with other companies. Overall, the R1S is very impressive, but this particular one did have some issues. First, alignments around the exterior weren't great. I don't personally care about this if they look reasonably okay and don't rattle, but there are a number of alignments I wouldn't consider to be top spec. This is also an early, under 1000 VIN R1S, so this could be something that they've improved upon since. One really annoying thing I had was with the door handle. I would shift into park, go to open the door, and it would only unlatch halfway, so every single time I exited the R1S after driving, I had to open the handle twice to get out. In the rear light bar, we noticed some condensation. It had been recently washed, but this definitely isn't something you want to see inside the lights on a brand new car. Also, the key card was really tough to work with. As I mentioned earlier, this won't be your primary key for this car, so it shouldn't matter, but I was surprised at how unreliable it was. I also noticed the chimes in this car were oftentimes cut off or much louder than I'm used to in the R1T, and that's probably a software issue. As for the interior build quality, I did hear a little rattling or adjusting when driving over rough roads, but aside from that, it's really great. You can tell Rivian is building these cars with great materials and spending a lot of time focused on build quality. They definitely don't want to build up a reputation like Tesla has at this point. But now that we know every feature that this car delivers, let's take it for a drive. To drive the Rivian R1S, I'm just going to press down on the drive stalk while holding the brake. I've driven this a little bit so far, and overall I notice it has everything I love about Rivian and electric cars, and it's just a little bit smaller, so it's actually a little easier to handle. We already went over all the functionality of the car itself with it having 3 rows of seats and all that, but it's just as quick, if not maybe a little quicker actually, than the R1T. It has all the same power, but it's just a little bit shorter, so you can really feel that on corners, and I really like it. Ride quality is great, really smooth with the adaptive air suspension. It could be a little smoother on certain sections, like this section of road that I'm feeling, but it's overall not something I'm going to complain about. One thing I do notice in this R1S compared to the R1T I've been driving a lot is it's a bit noisier inside, and that's actually not at all what I was expecting. I guess it does make sense because my R1T cuts off after the second row, and then there's a truck bed that I'm not hearing anything from, and this has a third row. But you hear a lot more from the back. You actually hear the air suspension canisters a lot more when it's raising or lowering the vehicle, which I wasn't expecting. And then just generally road noise is actually a little more. So that's a little bit of a surprise to me. Again, it's not a huge deal, but I wasn't expecting it. I do also hear like a little bit of squeaking in the suspension, which is something I have on my R1T, but it's even more noticeable on this one. And some of these things could relate to build quality because this is an early VIN, or they could simply be how the car is. Now let's give it some power right now. I'm in all-purpose mode, so it's not the absolute best situation for this. I'm probably at standard ride height right now, but let's check it out. Already going 30. Woo! You can hear the bumps a little more. Yeah, like that kind of stuff. I just hear the doors rattle a little more than I'm used to, but it's the same power that I'm used to, and it's just a little easier to drive. Woo! I mean, I don't see why anyone really needs more power in a vehicle, especially at this size. That is definitely the max, and that is really, really impressive. Fun fact about the R1S and R1T, they actually do have an official launch mode, unofficially. You press the brake, press the accelerator, and then boom, you're off. So the way I did that was I press and hold the brake, press and hold the accelerator, and let off of the brake. And Tesla has an official launch mode for that you can actually get the directions for on screen. Rivian doesn't say that they have that, but they definitely do. Just the fact that this vehicle is a little bit shorter, the launches feel a little more impressive and a little more stomach dropping. I'm actually not used to that for the R1T. But taking corners like that, just feel a little better. Turning. Yeah, this car is great. It's a phenomenal car to drive. I love driving this. It doesn't feel as big as it is at all, especially with power, but also with the handling. It's really good. I do notice the tiniest bit of delay. It's usually a little quicker than that when I'm putting the pedal all the way down. So here, I'm gonna snap my fingers when my pedal has completely hit the floor, and then you'll see there's just a little bit of a delay, which I'm not used to in electric cars with instant torque. Right here. Here we go. Just the littlest bit of delay. It's a little odd. Just something that's worth noting there. Obviously the power is still incredible, and you're not going pedal to the floor that often in these cars. It's definitely odd driving this because it's got that big feeling that the R1T has. Right now I'm in some windy roads, and this is always when electric cars shine to me. And you can really test their handling, of course. So the R1S is doing a great job on these curves. And if you want, you can also dial in all this stuff on screen. So I'm gonna go to Sport, and ride quality, I'm gonna go to Stiff. So now it's lowering to the lowest ride height, and it's stiffening up the suspension, and you can actually really feel the difference there. It's not just in the suspension, it's actually in the way the car drives and handles. I feel super comfortable driving this on these windy roads. And one pedal driving also adds to that. Rivian does a really good job with one pedal driving. It's one of the strongest one pedal drivings that I've ever used, and you definitely get used to it over time. Let's do a U-turn right here. Check out the turning radius. Nice. Yeah, that's great. This is a very, very good SUV. Clearly, I'm having fun driving this car, and I would say if you're in the market for a car like this, in this size, you want to go electric, it's going to be one of the best options you can get. You're going to have certain advantages with getting a Model X if you need that third row because of Tesla's supercharger network. But here, you're going to have other advantages, and this car is just really great and functional. That third row is very spacious. It also has a lot of these adventure features that just take this car to the next level, like the fact that I can raise the suspension up to 15 inches, or this is quad motor. It has all sorts of stuff that makes it a really great, useful SUV in this normal SUV boxy shape that a lot of people like. If I were to look for places to improve this from a driving perspective, it is very difficult, but I would say I could use a little bit of a softer suspension. Some of the sound could be reduced when I'm driving, and that could be an early VIN thing. on this car, and that's pretty much about it. Everything else, I have nothing to complain about. This is really a fantastic car for the size it is. One of the biggest things going forward with EVs that I'll mention in every EV review I make is that charging infrastructure is not great. If this will be your daily vehicle and you can charge at home, most of the time it will be a fantastic car to own. However, on a road trip, charging infrastructure is confusing, unreliable, and stressful. Tesla's lead in this space is very noticeable once you experience both, but Rivian is new and working on that. They are building out their own adventure network, and I hope that this will help to greatly improve charging infrastructure long term for these cars. Overall, the R1S is a fantastic electric SUV, and I had a blast checking it out and driving. I personally don't have the need for a large SUV at this point, but if I did, this would be at the top of my list with those considerations I mentioned. That said, I love my Rivian R1T, so make sure you're subscribed to this channel to see my upcoming video comparing the R1S to the R1T. In the meantime, you can check out my R1T review linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.